revelation, and this kind of blew me away, because how many times, for those of us who support President Trump, have been told that we're worshiping Trump. You're making him into an idol, and you're putting him up on a pedestal. Well, I hadn't seen this before, but in Exodus 7:1, this was at a point where Moses was frustrated because nobody was listening to him, and he didn't know how to talk. And God told him, I'm going to give you Aaron as a prophet. And then he said, Aaron shall speak for you to the people, and he shall be your mouth, and you shall be as God to him. What?
Yeah.
God said, you shall be as God to him. And he said it again in Exodus 7:1. And the Lord said to Moses, see, I have made you like God to Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron shall be your prophet. I'm like, oh my goodness, why would God say that? Well, if you imagine the epic nature of Moses' call, God had purposely placed upon Moses a mantle of authority that was so strong, it felt like he was God to people. Could it be that this is what people are recognizing upon President Trump because of the epic nature of what we're walking through? It's simply, he has a mantle on him. It's not even about the person.
Right.
And God's the one that put it there, not man.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think even people understand, especially non-believers, they just like the guy, But he is wearing a mantle, and it's authority. And this is why the enemy hates him so much. It's because of that mantle of authority. And just to tie it in, even with the New Testament, okay, because lest we think we're getting all of this stuff just from Old Testament, why would God give someone that? In Romans 13:3, God speaks to the kinds of leaders that he grants authority to, and it says, for rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. Catch that. He says they are a terror to bad conduct. He does not bear the sword in vain, for he is the servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer. So there is this idea that God grants leaders a level of authority, legitimate authority, that puts the fear of God on people. And that's for our good. It's not to build up a person, but it is for the good of the people, and to let them know heaven authorizes this leader. They have legitimate authority, not control, because that's what the enemy operates in, is power and control. Mm-hmm. But when it's God's legitimate authority, all of hell shakes.
Yeah.
And that's what God wants.
Yeah. And so, Wanda, I can already hear people saying this, or seeing people say this in the comments. Well, okay, if all authority is there for essentially for our good, then why don't you all just accept Biden as, the leader, or respect, so what would be your response to that?
Actually, I have a whole teaching on this. But in a nutshell, there is prerequisites to God giving authority, because it says all authority comes from God. Any legitimate authority has to come from God. Mm-hmm. There is no authority that man can give himself. Mm. And this is what Biden has taken that authority to himself. Yeah. He does not carry God's authority. They're two different things. Mm. And you'll know it because a true God-appointed, anointed leader that has his authority is going to, because in either 1st or 2nd Peter, it says, they will punish the wrongdoer and praise those who do good. Mm. That is the mark of the leader that has God's stamp of approval on them and will carry that legitimate authority. Mm. Just because someone holds an office does not mean that they have God's authority.
That's right.
Does that make sense?
Love it. I love it.
Okay.
All right.
Cool. So that was number 4. So we'll keep moving on here. Revelation number 5, in terms of this story of how God is speaking, through President Trump, through the prophets and the people. Here it gave a clue as to why people don't listen to the prophets. Because Moses was getting frustrated. These plagues were starting to happen. People wouldn't listen. He would try to come back with the word of the Lord. And then it says in Exodus 6:9, Moses spoke thus to the people of Israel, but they did not listen to Moses because of their broken spirit and harsh slavery. So those are the two reasons cited. Their broken spirit and the harshness of their slavery. Now we understand the harshness of, we're living in harsh times. We're having to live with the negative consequences of other people's choices. That's hard.
Yeah.
But this word broken spirit, actually, I looked that up, and the Hebrew word for that actually means impatient. Their broken spirit, it was because of their impatience. Now that is telling, isn't it? How many times are we guilty for that? And when I saw this, the picture that immediately came to mind was of a little kid in the back seat on a road trip who's always yelling up to the front, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet?"
Yeah.
and then the Lord reminded me, he called them the children of Israel for a reason.
Yeah.
It's because they really were childish yet. Not childlike. There's a difference between being childlike in faith but being childish. Being childish.
There are many examples of that child,
Yes.
bad kind of childlike behavior.
Yeah. And so that's our responsibility. Are we going to be impatient because, we just want to be there. We just want to be through this. And so what I'm telling you and what I'm wanting people to catch a hold of is that there is a process. God is trying to fill us with faith right now. We can't afford to just sit in the back seat and be backseat drivers. Right. We've got to take some ownership in recognizing what is changing, what is happening, what is God trying to teach me, what are his ways, not just his word, because he's doing something inside of us.